Washington State. A war on labor hidden behind nepotism and performative politics for over 8 years. Injured and immigrant workers in Washington State have begged for protection and reform. Yet, those in power, politicians, unions, and progressive leaders, have chosen silence and performative distractions, leaving workers vulnerable to systemic exploitation. The erosion of workers' protections in Washington State. Washington's workers' compensation system is riddled with failures, harming both native-born and immigrant workers. Privatized vocational services. These programs prioritize denial of claims over compliance, systematically cheating injured workers and pushing them onto federal programs like SSDI. State immunity laws. Employers and doctors are shielded from accountability for denying care, medications, and support to workers in need. A false narrative. Lawmakers spin tales that Landy is not broken, dismissing the truth about the harm being inflicted on injured Latino farm workers and others in Washington. Latino Legislative Day. A smokescreen for inaction during Latino Legislative Day. State leaders like Lieutenant Governor Habib and Rep. Ortiz Self falsely assured the public that Latinos should not fear reporting workplace injuries. Washington's workers' compensation system protects everyone. These claims are demonstrably false. For example, 400 Latino farm workers suffering from on-the-job injuries remain underserved, ignored, and abandoned by the state. Instead of addressing the need for federal oversight, discussions shifted to mental health awareness and how to contact legislators, completely avoiding the structural failures of the system. A workers' comp attorney, intended to reassure Latinos, didn't even show up, further exposing the day's intent to spin the narrative rather than confront the truth. Bob Hasegawa's role in perpetuating the problem. While Senator Bob Hasegawa presents himself as a labor advocate, his actions suggest otherwise. His state-level proposals, like SB 5104, penalizing workplace coercion based on immigration status, do little to address the systemic exploitation of workers. These bills are performative distractions, offering false hope without addressing root causes. Hasegawa's Teamsters union ties are concerning, given the union's past decisions to not endorse a presidential candidate in 2024, effectively tossing their weight behind Trump's anti-labor agenda. He praised former state Senator Marilyn Chase and her daughter, Karen Chase, who serves on the Snohomish County Human Rights Commission. Despite holding influential positions, neither have spoken up for workers or immigrants in years, reflecting the entrenched nepotism in Washington's Democratic Party. Unions and progressives, silent enablers of exploitation under April Sims. The Washington State Labor Council has prioritized corporate interests over the rights of laborers. The WSLC has remained silent on the 15% national erosion of the laborer's grand bargain over the past decade. Self-proclaimed progressives like Kshama Sawant have also failed to demand federal action, leaving the ALEC-driven Republican agenda to dismantle labor protections unchallenged. The role of nepotism and elites. The Democratic Party in Washington State is rife with nepotism. The Chases, entrenched in politics and human rights commissions, represent a system where power stays within a select circle. These leaders protect their own interests while ignoring the struggles of injured workers and immigrants. What we need: federal oversight and action. State-level distractions will never solve systemic exploitation. Workers demand federal standards for workers' compensation, protect workers across state lines, and end regional disparities. Accountability for nepotism and elites. Replace entrenched political families with leaders committed to real change. Transparency in unions and politics. Expose performative allies and hold them accountable for their inaction. National Workers' Compensation Commission. Restore the laborer's grand bargain with comprehensive, enforceable protections. The bottom line: the silence of Washington state Democrats, unions, and progressives has enabled systemic exploitation. Workers and immigrants are dying, cheated out of their rights, and left to fend for themselves. Performative politics and nepotistic leadership have no place in a just society. The time for silence is over. It's time to fight for every worker, immigrant or native-born, and demand the protections we deserve.